Hey guys, welcome to my channel. We are reading The Homework Machine, chapter 7, 8, and 9 today. It's going to be a little bit more of a longer read, but yeah, we are going to get this book done. So here we go. Get a comfy chair so then you can get comfy. Chapter 7, March. Ronnie. When Miss Rasmussen switched everybody's seat around, I was put at the same table as our genius and resisted Brendan. So I figured this was perfect. If any of those D-Squad jerks was going to spill the beans, it would be him. He couldn't tell a lie to save his life. This would be my chance to get the truth out of him. I tried to get all buddy-buddy with him first, making like I was his friend. I offered him gum. I asked him if he wanted to hang out after school. I asked him if he wanted to take a hike in the canyon sometime. I asked him if he wanted to play ball or something. Nothing couldn't get him to crack. He always had an excuse. Whatever he was hiding, he wasn't saying. Finally, I just asked him that I knew what he was up to and he'd better let me in on it or I was going to tell everybody. And he says, "And what exactly am I up to?" I didn't have anything to say, so I just shut up. He had me. He got me mad. Sam. Well, I lost again. My dad attacks with his queen and rook at the same time. And it's like they are intersecting. Laser beams shooting all over the board. My pieces were all locked up at the... Oh my gosh. My pieces were all locked up and each other way. So I bring my chessboard into class and we all try to think of every possible move I could make to get out of the situation, but it's hopeless. Brendan says that I'm in zigzag, which means that any move you make only makes your position worse. I had to resign. Afterwards, my dad sends me an email telling how proud he is of me. He says I put up a good fight when I was little. I remember. He used to let me win at games and sports. I would beat him all the way, but he said I was getting too old for that. And I have to learn how to handle losing because in the real world, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. It made me feel good. We started a new game. 5th grade teacher. One day I noticed that the homework turned in by Brendan, Kelsey, Judy, and Sam was remarkably similar, except for the handwriting. This was after I had switched their seats around. I also noticed that the 4 of them still left school together at the end of the day. I don't know why it took me so long to notice the similarities in their work. With so many papers to correct every night, I just didn't make the connection, and their work was so well done. I tend to notice that the kid who make a lot of mistakes, not the kid who gets everything right. I hope that after I've been teaching for a few years, I won't be so overwhelmed with work and will be able to pay more attention to things like this. Sam. Miss Rasmussen pulls me inside after school one day and says what an awesome job I'm doing on my homework. I say thanks and try to get out of there as fast as possible. But then she asks me if I ever copy off anybody. Now that I'm looking back on it all, I guess I should have been been insulted. I mean, she was basically saying I'm too dumb to do such good work on my own. But I was cheating, so I wasn't too insulted. I say no, I don't copy off of anybody, and that was the truth, technically. I never copied my homework off Brenton or Judy or anybody. I didn't have to. Belch did the homework for me, but I didn't tell Miss Rasmussen that. Kelsey. The three of us got all bent out of shape after Miss Rasmussen had a talk with Snike. They decided that me and Snike had to start getting some of the answers wrong so it wouldn't look like the machine was doing our homework for us. So now we had to cheat, so it wouldn't look like we were cheating. What a hassle. I can make mistakes just fine on my own, Brenton. It became necessary to rewrite the Belch software to program the initial mistakes at random intervals for Snike and Kelsey's homework. This was an interesting challenge, and I enjoyed it immensely. It's easy to design a machine that will work perfectly all the time. It's hard to design one that will work perfectly just most of the time. It goes against the nature of the machines. It reminded me of what they did with Post-it notes they created an adhesive that was sticky, but not too sticky. It was Post-it notes were stickers. They would not serve their purpose. You wouldn't be able to pull them off and stick them somewhere else. They're perfect because they don't work very well. In other words, they're perfect because they fail. That was what I had to accomplish with Belch. Police Chief Rebecca Fish received a call on Saturday afternoon, March 16th. There was a break-in at the house of the Tamagotchi boy. Nobody was home at the time. There was a broken basement window, some minor damage. Nothing was stolen. Didn't look like a professional job. They ran when the alarm went off. It was a prank by a kid, I guess. Happens all the time. Ronnie. I didn't try to break into Brenton's house. I don't care how many times you ask me. I didn't do it, and you can't prove that I did. Judy. We have this school paper called the Grand Canyon Times. It's not a real paper, just some stories and poems that kids write, and it's stapled together. It comes out a few times a year anyway. There's a gossip column in there. Usually the gossip is silly stuff like, guess who likes so-and-so, or which teacher wears a wig, stuff like that. But right in the middle of the page, there was an item about homework machine. I freaked out. The Grand Canyon Times. The rumors are flying around the canyon that certain people in grade 5 have invented a mysterious machine that does their homework for them. Can you believe that? Where can we get one of those, and how much does it cost? Sam. I freaked out when I saw it. Whoever planted that thing in the paper was a real rat. It wasn't me. I figured it couldn't have been Brenton. I wasn't so sure about Judy or Kelsey. After the thing was in the paper, we had to have another stupid meeting. Sam tried to get one of us to confess, but nobody did. We decided that we couldn't meet at recess anymore, and we couldn't be seen talking to each other at school. Judy was totally paranoid that we were going to get caught. Ronnie. Okay, I was the one who tried to break into Brenton's house. I had to figure out what they were up to. What are you going to do, throw me in jail? I didn't cheat on my homework, and I had nothing to do with the item in the paper. You'll have to pin that one on somebody else. Look, I didn't know if they had a secret machine or not, but it sounded believable. And if they did have a machine, it wasn't fair to the rest of us. Why should I have to sit there for hours doing my homework by hand while somebody else can just push a button and have some machine do it for him? I wasn't the only one who felt that way. I heard other kids talking about it. Brenton's mom. It was towards the end of March when a stranger knocked at our door one morning. Brenton was at school. This man asked if he could ask me a few questions. First, it was simple questions like how many years have I lived in the house, the things like that. Then he started asking me what computer equipment we had and what we were doing, what we do with it. I didn't like the whole idea of the stranger asking me these questions, and I asked him to kindly leave. I was frightened. I didn't catch his name. Kelsey. We had another stupid meeting because some guy was snooping around Brenton's house. I wondered if it was the milliner guy who was stalking me. We decided that we had to move Belch. I said I didn't want it at my house. Judy said she didn't want it at her house, so we moved it to Snike's house. What a pain it was carrying all that stuff. The computer must have weighed a ton. We had to put it in a wheelbarrow. Thinking back on it now, I noticed one weird thing that I'd never mentioned to anyone. When we unplugged the computer to move it to Snike's house, that little red light didn't go out. Chapter 8. April. Brenton's mom. I have never known my son was act irrationally, but I must say I was a bit shocked and angry when he gave away all his computer equipment. Sure, my husband gets it for free, though, through his work, but even so, it was thousands of dollars worth of electronics. You don't just give that away, and Brenton loved his computer. When I asked him why he gave it all away, he sort of shrugged and acted like I couldn't possibly understand. That's not like my son either. I thought he was going through one of those pre-teenage phases. Maybe this was his way of rebelling against his father. I should have punished him. Should I? Should have? You can always say that, can't you? Only later did I figure out the reason he gave his computer away. Sam's mom. I went upstairs to change the sheets one day, and there was a fancy computer system sitting on Sam's desk. It was much nicer than the old PC we got from our Air Force. I asked him where he got it, and he said Brenton gave it to him. Well, that didn't sound right. You don't just give somebody something like that. I told Sam he had to give it back, but he said Brenton's father got lots of free computers, and he insisted that Brenton didn't want it. I called up Miss Damgachi, and she said it was true. She didn't know why Brenton didn't want it anymore. We figured boys will be boys. Sam. My dad and I have a pretty hot game. My plan from the opening was to get my pieces onto good squares as soon as I could. I did that, and Dad actually made a few bludders. He let his rocket caught in front of his pawn so they couldn't advance. By the time we reached the middle game, I was 2 pawns ahead, so I brought out my queen and let her have a run on the board. Dad always told me that one of the best forms of defense is to attack, so I did. After I captured his rock, he offered to call it a draw. I could have gone for a win, but I guess I just didn't have that killer instinct yet. But I had my first draw. Dad said I wasn't just a wood pusher anymore. That's what you call a weak player, a wood pusher. We started another game. 5th grade teacher. There were all kinds of rumors swirling around, and I wasn't sure how to handle them. You don't want to punish students based on some silly gossip in the school paper or what somebody wrote in the bathroom stall. I was talking about it in the teacher's lounge, and one of the other teachers suggested I gave the class a surprise test. That would tell me how much students were remembering from their homework. Normally, I don't like the whole idea of giving tests for students this age, but it seemed like a good idea. I made up a multiple-choice test that covered just about everything we had studied all year. The solar system, the explorers, Amazon geography, everything. The children were a little surprised when I sprung it out on them, to say at least. Sam. It was totally unfair. I thought Miss Rasmussen tells us all year long that she doesn't believe in tests. Then bang! Out of nowhere, she hits us with this huge test. 5th grade teacher. Well, the class did pretty well as a whole. I was pleased about that. Brenton got every answer right. No surprise there. Sam and Kelsey failed completely. Their grades were the worst in the class. It was like they had never seen the material before. But they had been turning in excellent homework. That made me very suspicious. They should have done better. What was most surprising, though, was that Judy got a C. She's an extremely bright girl who turned in perfect homework every night. There was no reason why she shouldn't have done better. I had no choice but to believe the rumors about the cheatings were true. I was preparing to present the evidence to the principal. Judy: I couldn't believe I got a C. I never got a C before in my life. I was so ashamed. Instead of bringing the test home to show my parents, I stuffed it in my backpack back of my locker. If anybody asked where it was, I decided I would pretend it was lost. As it turned out, I never had to pretend anything. After what happened, I felt silly for even caring about what I got on the test. Kelsey: Snike was absent the day we got the test back. I thought maybe he stayed home from school because he knew he failed. But he was absent the next day, too. Then Rasmussen came in after lunch that second day, and she was crying. She told us that Snike's father was killed. I started crying. I knew what it's like to lose your dad. Sam: I'd rather not talk about what happened to my dad. Is that okay? Fifth grade teacher: I was told that Sam's father was driving an armed vehicle with 3 other soldiers, and it was ambushed in the middle of the night. Sam's father and the soldiers sitting next to him in the front seat were killed. The other 2 soldiers in the back were severely injured. It was a horrible tragedy, and the kind you simply can't prepare for. Sam wasn't the only child who was upset. Kelsey had lost her father when she was younger, and she was distraught. Counselors were brought in to help us all get over our grief. We made cards. We gave Sam lots of hugs when he came back to school. What else could we do? It's not like a wound that would heal in time. Judy: Brenton and I were very careful about what we said to Snike after his father was killed. He knew how we felt about the war. We didn't want to say anything that might be insensitive. It was just so sad. Snike was the only one who didn't cry. Maybe he got it out of his system at home. We all felt so sorry for him. Kelsey: I was so angry. We had met Snike's dad. He came into our class that day and told us that what it was like to be a soldier. He was a good guy. Now he was dead. And for what? It wasn't like World War II, when America had to, like, save the world from Hitler. It was more like Vietnam. It was a war for nothing, and Snike's dad died for nothing, just like my dad died for nothing when I was little. It was stupid. I couldn't stop crying. It was like the world stopped turning. Sam: Dad and I were in the middle of the game when it happened. It just let the pieces sit there on the squares where they were. I'll never move them, ever. I don't know if there is an afterlife, but if there is, someday my dad and I will finish that game. Fifth grade teacher: It was a difficult time for everyone that first week after we got the news, especially for Sam and his mother. Miss Duncan's remains were flown back home a few days later. Just about everyone in the school attended the funeral. After what happened, I couldn't bring myself to go to Principal Wilson with my suspicions of cheating. I just couldn't do it. It was getting closer to the end of the year. For better or worse, I decided to let it slide. Judy: I thought that we wouldn't use Belch after Snike's dad died. It would have been rude to go over to his house at the time like that, but Snike invited us over. He needed the company, I guess, and we were all addicted to Belch at that point. Sam's mom: It was an awful time for us after my husband died, of course, but people were so wonderful, coming around to see if we were okay. cooking us dinners, and so on. Sam's friends Brenton and Judy and Kelsey came over every day after school and worked on their homework together up in his room. One day I walked in without knocking, and they all looked at me like I had caught them doing something wrong. But they were just using the computer Brenton had given Sam. I backed out of there and left them alone. Judy, after the funeral, there was a lot of outsiders around. I don't just mean tourists. I'm talking about official-looking guys with suits and military uniforms. It was creepy. One day I was riding my bike, and one of these guys stopped me. He didn't say anything about Snike's dad. He started asking me questions about computers. My parents always warned me to be careful around strangers. I yelled at the man and told him to leave me alone or I'd scream. I pedaled away as fast as I could go. Now I was really paranoid. The police or FBI were after us for sure. Kelsey. Snike was depressed because of his dad, and who could blame him? Brenton's head was up in the clouds somewhere, like always, and Judy was a basket case. I was worried about her the most. She claimed some weird guy stopped her on the street, and he was probably an FBI agent. I thought that maybe she was hallucinating. That girl just can't deal with stress. Well, somebody had to take charge, so I called a meeting, me, at my house, the four of us. We had a long talk. There were so many things we had to talk about. First, I reminded them all about Belch was supposed to make our lives easier, but with all the problems and worrying, it made everything harder. We were spending more time worrying about Belch and trying to keep it a secret than we would have if we just did our stupid homework without a stupid machine. I reminded them all that we had a pact to keep our secret and that one of us must have spilled the beans. Which one was it? I knew it wasn't me. They all looked at each other for a long time. Judy said it wasn't her. Snike said it wasn't him. We all looked at Brenton. He just looked down and said, really quietly, "It was me. I'm sorry." Brenton. I guess I can admit this now. I was the one who called in the tip to the police hotline, and I linked the items to the school paper. This is what I told them. It was the truth. I had given it a lot of thought. It may not have been morally wrong for me to use Belch for my homework, but it was probably morally wrong for Snike and Kelsey because they were using it as a crunch. It was morally wrong for me to break the agreement we had made, but it would also have been morally wrong for me not to break it and let them continue using Belch. It was a lose-lose situation. In the long run, it would be better for Snike and Kelsey to do their own homework, but I didn't have the courage to confront them directly in that regard. I'm a coward. Sam, I couldn't believe it. How could he do that to us? Judy, I thought I was going to pass out. My life was over. Kelsey, I thought Snike and Judy were going to kill him. They were so mad. I told him they were being stupid. What was done was done. Brenton made the machine. He could do anything he wanted with it. It was our fault. There was nothing we could do about it. Even if Brenton hadn't told anybody, someone would have figured out eventually. I threw my arm around him and told him I forgave him. Sam. We had a lot of angry words, but what was done was done. We had to decide what to do next. Should we turn ourselves in? Run away from home? For the time being, we decided to stop using Belch and hope the whole thing blew over. Kelsey. I called Judy that night. I had to say something else that had been on my mind for a long time. It was so obvious. It was ridiculous. I told her that she liked Brenton and Brenton liked her. They might as well come out in the open about it. Well, she denied it, of course. She said it was crazy. I was crazy. I didn't care. I knew I was right. I may not know much about math or geography, but I know when two people like each other. Brenton and Judy were going out with each other And they didn't even know it. Well, I told Kelsey she was nuts about me and Brenton, but I will say this, Kelsey really impressed me. I was proud of her taking over like that, and I was glad we had the meeting. It made me feel a little better the next day in school. But Miss Rasmussen handed me a note that said Brenton, Snide, Kelsey, and I were invited. To the meeting of Principal Watson's office the next week, invited. This was it. We were going to be suspended, kicked out of school. My life was over. Sam. So Judy says we should just admit everything and tell the truth about Belch. She says that when criminals plead guilty to a crime, they get a lighter punishment than they claim they're innocent. I tell her she's crazy. She'll never get into law school. Someday, if they ever find out she cheated her way through 5th grade. She's upset, of course. She says she never wanted to use a machine to do her homework in the first place. Then Brenton says it might be possible to destroy any evidence that Belch ever existed. He could erase all our data and wipe the hard drive clean. Now that sounded like a good idea to me. We were in an agreement. We decided to go into the Principal Watson's office and next week and deny everything. We pretended there was never any such thing as a homework machine. Alrighty. Chapter 9. May. Sam. So, the 4 of us gathered at my house that Saturday. We didn't have to be there just to erase all the data. I guess we wanted to say goodbye to Belch. After all, it had been an amazing machine, at least, before everything went wrong. It deserved a decent goodbye. Brenton sits down at the keyboard and starts doing his thing. He says it would only take a few minutes to destroy all the data and erase the hard drive. But 5 minutes go by and he's still fooling with it. He has this worried look on his face. Brenton. Something was wrong. I have never locked the file or password protected them. But something was preventing me from deleting them. I tried everything. Kelsey. Judy started to panic. She was grabbing Brenton by the shoulders and asking, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" He told her to stop it because he couldn't concentrate. He kept wiping the sweat off his forehead. The machine wasn't letting him delete anything. Judy. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the power cord and just yanked the plug out of the wall. Kelsey. Judy went nuts and pulled the plug. We all thought that would be the end of it, but nothing happened. Belch was still on the screen, and the red power light didn't go out. Then she really went nuts. Brenton. Apparently in the months we had been using the machine, it somehow discovered a way to conserve its energy and run without traditional source of electricity. That's how intelligent it was. It had probably discovered some obscure website that described an alternate energy source that we couldn't begin to understand. I was frustrated that I could not seem to turn the thing off. But at the same time, I marveled at the power of the artificial intelligence. I was proud of it. And the way it had evolved with no help from me. Sam. It was like some weird science fiction movie where the scientist creates this machine that becomes too powerful and develops a mind of its own and gets out of control and turns evil and tries to take over the world. I told Brenton to stop kidding around and just turn the thing off, but he couldn't. It was too smart. Judy was out of her mind. We all were. Judy. The machine was using us instead of us using it. We couldn't stop it. There was no telling what it might decide to do. Brenton said it might be a good idea for us to go into another room and talk about what to do next. I asked him why. He said Belch might be listening. That really freaked me out. Kelsey. There was nothing getting around it. We knew that we had to do it. We had to destroy Belch. Not deprogramming it or erasing or deleting some stupid files. We had to destroy the thing before it destroyed us. Sam. If there's one thing I'm good at, it's busting stuff. I have a few baseball bats in the garage. We could have just taken Belch outside and wailed on the thing and busted it up good. But the others said that the police or FBI or whoever was snooping around asking questions would find all the little pieces all over our yard. Kelsey. We talked about all the ways we could destroy Belch. Judy suggested we took it apart piece by piece and then mailed each piece to different country, but we didn't have time for that. Snike wanted to set up a fire and stuff for the full firecrackers and blow it up in smithereens. I said we should just open up the back and pour cheese wits all over the inside. My mom once dropped cheese wits on the calculator by accident and it never worked again. Judy. I just wanted it to go away forever. They were throwing out all kinds of crazy ideas. We couldn't melt it. Run it over by a bulldozer. Dig a hole in the ground and bury it so deeply they wouldn't find it for 100 years. I guess I was the one who suggested we throw it into the Grand Canyon. I wasn't serious. It was just a dumb idea. Sam. Judy had a brilliant idea. We didn't even have to dig a hole. We live right next to the biggest hole in the world. It's like a mile deep. The Colorado River is at the bottom, and it's almost 300 miles long. The river would carry Belch away, and we'd never see it again. It was a foolproof. Judy. Why would I be part of such a crazy plan? I don't know. Sometimes when I'm under stress, I don't think straight. Desperate people do stupid things, and I didn't use good judgment. My brain wasn't working. Everybody thought it was such a great idea. I got swept in on it. Brenton. It was like chess. We were zagwag. Oh my gosh. Any move we made would have made our position worse. It seemed like the best and only option was to throw Belch into the Grand Canyon. The bottom of the canyon is a mile down, but it's not a steep cliff like one of those Roadrunner cartoons. We couldn't just drop Belch over the edge and expect it to reach the bottom. It would be necessary to throw at a good distance to clear the rocks and the trees. There was only one way to do that. Sam. The catapult. I thought, what a genius Brenton is. We'd get a catapult he built for school and bring it out to south rim of the canyon. We'd load Belch up into it and chuck the thing over our lives forever. Get the thing out of our lives forever. Kelsey. We waited until it was dark that night. The moon was full, I remember. Judy. We snuck into Brenton's garage and took his catapult. Brenton. We took the catapult over to Snike's house and disconnected Belch. The red light never turned off. Sam. We loaded Belch onto the catapult. Kelsey. We wheeled the catapult over to the edge of the south rim. Brenton. We found the isolated spot where it looked like it would be the shortest distance to the middle of the canyon. Kelsey. We made sure nobody was around. Judy. We all said goodbye. It was like taking an old friend to the airport when they're moving away. And you'll never see them again. Sam. We did a countdown. 10, 9, 8. Kelsey. Brenton pushed the button. Sam. And the thing just flew. You should have seen it. It crossed right in front of the moon. It was beautiful. Kelsey. We waited and waited. We never heard splash or crash. It was so far down, it was like a thing just vanished. Judy. I felt like the weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Kelsey. It was gone. It was over. And that is the end of chapter 9, guys. We will be on chapter 10 in the next video, and that would be the last chapter. So, I will see you guys in that next video.